Tay was laughing for the first time in a week. It had been hard listening to the recovered humans, even harder to participate in the tribunals. The Admiral had deemed the slave owners as combatants in collusion with the Intech, a dubious concept that allowed for swift and, above all, quiet action. She had spent nearly a month taking witness statements. Now, reliably as always, Bork had made her day. "Chief, get up here. We need to talk." Chief Engineer Roden, a founding member of the Intel Engineering Department and veteran of the Human Defense Force, woke up at his desk again. He checked the time. "Crap." He simply responded, "Captain, give me 10 minutes, I'll be up to you," then jumped into the shower. This ship was so damn big that his office had a full bathroom, bigger than the Admiral's one on his old ship. Then he pulled on fresh overalls and went to see what madness his captain was up to this time. "Chief, are you unhappy with your quarters?" Was not the first question he was expecting. "What?" "Captain, my quarters are fine, magnificent even." "Why?" Tay grinned at him. "Because, Chief, according to the regulations, as interpreted by Bork, they are vacant and should be reassigned. You haven't signed into them for over a month." "Chief, you haven't left your office for weeks." "I'm sorry, I didn't realize how much pressure you were under." Roden paused, thinking back. He remembered getting bits and pieces moved, but not when. The captain had been wrapped up in the tribunals. He was busy with the new teams. At some point he had just started sleeping on the sofa in his office. Everyone just assumed he was there. It had saved a long walk every time something needed doing. He looked at Tay. "Sorry, Captain, I didn't notice. It just seems simpler to stay put." Tay nodded. "I know, Chief, but you can't babysit everything. The teams need to learn, just like we did." Roden carefully didn't mention that he knew that the captain hadn't even seen her new quarters yet. "Yes, Captain." Tay brought up a file. "His file. You haven't taken leave since we met. In fact, you haven't taken any since the war began. That's not good enough. As it happens, I need a senior engineer for something, and that is going to be you. Bork's planet has never had a visit. In fact, only the XCC knows anything about it." She grinned again. "Guess who I'm sending? Go and see if we should recruit there. Go fishing. Relax a bit. I'll hold the ship together while you're away. Captain, perhaps another time in a month or so." "Chief, in a month this ship is undergoing trials. Captain Sullivan is assembling a collection of enemy shipping for us to play with. I need you fresh and I need to meet the new crew. Take a week off, see what you think and relax. It will all still be here when you get back." Despite the grumbling, cursing, and last-minute packing, Roden found himself in a shuttle and on an unexpected holiday. That was pretty much his last thought as, some hours later, his shuttle was slammed into by an Intech privateer. Then, as he was dragged from the ship in a blur of pain and confusion, the shuttle collapsed under fire, falling into the dark along with his consciousness. He awoke to the sound of a medbay, humming to itself as always. For a moment he couldn't remember a damn thing. Then the smell, the pain, and shock all returned. The enemy, the Intech. He tried to rise and, to his surprise, found it easy. He wore no chains and his burns were gone. The room was gray, dark to his eyes but not a cell, just another Intech ship. He had dismantled enough of them to recognize the scavenging, thieving bastards that they were. He wondered where they had stolen the medbay and who had died in the theft. Slaving bastards. The lights came on, gently rising to galactic normal. An Intech stood at the door, its mask hiding all intent. Roden looked around, but there was nothing that he could use, no handy plot device to escape. Years of bad novels had been ruined for him. It moved forward. Chief Engineer Roden of the Curiosity, you are a prisoner of war. Remain calm and prepare for interrogation. Food will be made available shortly. Any attempt to interfere with the ship's systems will result in immediate death, probably for all of us. This ship is quarantined due to your hazardous nature. Do you understand? Roden was confused and angry. So now you take prisoners? I thought you took slaves. A prisoner of war, am I? As if you thieving bastards knew what that even meant. He glared at the creature, every report fresh in his mind. I just met the last people you stole, you dumb fuck. Don't pretend you even know what it means. Then I met their children. Now you're meeting their fucking ancestors, asshole, and we will kill you all. The Intech hadn't moved. Yes, you will. You poor innocents, dragged into the light with your hidden armies, with your trail of blood and war finally reaching the stars. We cannot stand against you. I know humans, even as slaves, you were dangerous. We thought you dead, and then we find you on every ship, turning our sheep into wolves. You think you understand, you poor fools. Our blood is being used to pay everyone's debts. You are not here to die or to slave. You are here to understand. The door closed and locked behind the Intech, leaving only food of some kind and water. Roden was getting angrier and angrier. This was a job for Tay. Shit, he barely left the damn ship. Why drag him into it? He wasn't even an officer, just another engineer. He was no Marine, ready to kill with his teeth. Mind you, he had already spotted 3 faults in this room that he could use to cause the power to fail. Maybe one that might blow the ship, if he could find some copper wire and a toothpick. He was harmless. He ate the tiresome rations and drank the water, and then he waited, occasionally mapping the garbage systems they had stolen and tied together. Amateurs. After some time passed, after his mind had ranged through all the worst possibilities of what might be coming, the door opened. This time there were 3 of them, all inconveniently armed to the teeth. "It is time. You must come with us and speak with the interrogator." In silence, they marched him towards another gray room. The leader knocked gently on the door and announced, "We have the human, as ordered. Enter." Roden was pushed into the room, another utilitarian cabin space as ugly as its owner. The door closed behind him as he faced the interrogator, trying to prepare himself for what might come. Tay was surprised when Bork arrived unexpectedly. He never did anything unexpectedly. Usually she got 3 memos before he would print anything, or request office supplies. She waited for him to start. "Captain, the chief engineer is late, nearly 20 hours now. The civic reception has been postponed. Our ships are looking for him, and we have found the burned wreckage of a shuttle in the outer system of our capital system." Tay rearranged the information and called the admiral. "Sir, the chief has been taken or killed on his way to the Bork homeworld. I need fleet support immediately. We need to find him. If the Intech have him—" She stopped speaking, beyond words at this point. She had sent him out there, forgetting that wars have 2 sides, that no one is stupid, that the Intech have fought every species in the damn galaxy and lived. Everything had been too easy, every victory expected. Apparently no one had told the Intech that. Admiral Williams sat across from Captain Tay, waiting for Captain Sullivan to arrive. "Tay, we will find him. We know exactly where he was going. We know where the shuttle was lost. They obviously didn't intend to kill him, and they must know how many of their people I hold. Nothing he tells them is useful against us, unless they start handing him tools and let him work on their own ships. I suspect that no species in the galaxy would be that stupid." Tay grinned briefly, aware that it would be the last mistake they made. Xenos never seemed to realize just how powerful their technology was, or how an engineer with nothing to lose might act. Still, these were just words, and she needed more. "Admiral, I sent him out there. I want him at home." The Admiral had a clear idea of Tay's feelings. He had sent out people that didn't come back, but Tay, despite everything, was new to the reality. It didn't matter if they recovered the chief or not, this was going to hurt his new captain. Growing up was always painful. Roden was left alone with the interrogator, an Intech that seemed happy to just sit behind his desk and wait, its mask shielding any emotions, its body still. The room smelled old, unwashed, and neglected, but it didn't appear to hold any of the devices that had crossed Roden's mind. Finally it spoke. "Sit down, Chief. I am your interrogator, and we will, I'm afraid, be spending quite a lot of time together. I have a name, but since you humans have no sense of smell worth a damn, you will simply call me Sir. Is that clear?" Roden vaguely remembered training far too long ago and far too short for being held prisoner. Since they were mostly about laws that didn't apply and for a world that felt very far away right now, he decided to wing it. "Intech, I will call you that the day you complete officer training in the HOF. You are Intech to me, or I will use some of the many other names I can think of right now. I am Erie Roden, Chief Engineer on the Curiosity Human Offensive Force, and I have a service number written down somewhere. If you let me get back to the ship, I'll be sure to send it to you." The Intech didn't respond immediately, until with a hiss from its mask, it sank back in its chair. "Chief, you are everything I dislike in humans. Arrogant, individual, and defiant, so sure of your morality. But I have studied you. I have been paying attention. Yes, we held human slaves. For all the good they did the fools that captured them. But so did you. Yes, we are pirates, hunting where we will, taking from those who forced us to the very edges of space. We hide our worlds. Did you think we hid them from you? You child soldiers of the galaxy. You are only the latest of their atrocities against us. I do not expect you to believe me. Indeed, I don't expect you to care that much, but, as I said, I have studied your people. You seem to be able to put the parts together, to see to the core of things in a way that escapes most of you aliens. That is your task, engineer. We will assemble this history for your people, or we will both die here." Roden was getting more confused by the minute. As torture went, he had met worse nonsense at the bar. If this thing was serious, all it was going to do was feed him all the information an intel officer could dream of. Propaganda? Really? He was supposed to turn on mankind, put on a pirate hat, and run around with this crowd. These guys must be truly fucked if they expected that to work. All he had to do was smile and nod, until Tay arrived with whatever bits of the fleet she had persuaded, or stolen to come and get him. And all that we will both die crap. Sure, try and involve me in my own torture. Make me care about the one holding the knife, about the things I will force him to do. Every human child had been trained against that shit for the last 10 generations. Compliance is not culpability, cruelty is not kindness, pain is not loved. Lessons from a bitter earth. Fuck you, pirate. If I burn, I will take you with me. Tay had transferred to Captain Sullivan's ship, the Curiosity being too big and too new for this mission. He came to see her in the engineering department where she was, frankly, hiding. They had recovered the chief's shuttle, and she was dismantling the wreckage, looking for anything that might help. Tay, how are you doing? Anything I should be telling the Admiral? Tay shook her head. It was simple enough. They were waiting for him, breached the shuttle, and grabbed him. Most of the damage was done afterward, since he would have been dead if he was still on board. She looked at Sullivan. Captain, they knew he was on the way. They knew exactly where to find him. How? Captain Sullivan smiled bitterly. Well, with the vast resources of my department, with our subtle wiles and sheer genius, I have discovered that dark magic. Bork's government put out a press release, giving out the exact details of his arrival to the entire universe, or at least to anyone paying attention, such as the Intech. Unfortunately, we weren't. It never occurred to anyone that the first ever visit by a human might be important, or at least a visit by someone of his rank. Bork explained it to me while he made the tea. We were stupid, and I'm afraid the chief is paying the price. Tay had been speaking often with Ben, as they tried to settle the recovered people and rebuild Oz into something special. He had insisted that she begin to learn the language, assuring her that no one would fully trust her if she kept using the translator. So far, they had worked down quite a long list of swear words, and right now seemed the perfect moment to use them all. Roden was taken to a new cell, without any handy toys to play with. If he had to be honest, it wasn't a cell, really. Just a bog-standard crew compartment with a bloody big lock on the outside. These Intech made the worst kind of enemy. The ones that were a little too clever for the obvious, and a little too stupid for the strange. If he pretended to be ill, well, he guessed that the 3 heavily armed guards would drag him back to the med bay. If he made something explode, they would do the same. Other than the interrogator, no one seemed inclined to talk to him, so seduction was off the board. What was waiting for him was a pile of documents, a translator, and a notebook. Great. He always loved homework. The documents were basically just a chronology, a long list of stuff that happened. It held no context, only one event following another. From the dates, if they were to be believed, they went back around 800 years. Some were from the Central Galactic Government, some on scraps of random paper. It looked like a family history assembled by some blind old lady with hoarding issues. Not really his field. However, there was bugger else to do here, so he began to trawl through them, eventually finding the earliest paper. It looked like some kind of fairy tale, some origin myth. He began to translate it, the software struggling with the archaic dialect. He shook his head, thinking that of all the outcomes of his capture, of all the fears he had and with his future so uncertain, this was the most unlikely. Any half-competent AI could do this in minutes. Why use him? Tay finally finished matching the weapon signatures from the destroyed shuttle to actual weapons, then matching those weapons to any known Intech ship. All she found was that it was an Intech cruiser, probably less than 40 years old and not slave-built. The energy output was well above any of the half-assed stuff thrown together by slaves. This was from a shipyard. That meant there was an Intech shipyard out there, and one that was making decent ships. Time to talk to the Admiral again. She met Captain Sullivan first since this was his ship. Then they called the Admiral. He was, as he liked to tell them frequently, up to his armpits in a war, so they tried to keep it short. Admiral, we have something important for you. Somewhere out there, hidden from anything we have discovered so far, is an Intech system making good ships with decent weapons. No slaves, no stolen parts. The weapon signatures are consistent with a good, comprehensive, and competent shipyard. We need to find it. If they have moved to a war footing, we may be facing a lot more opposition than we expected. The Admiral waved his officers to silence. You are sure? That seems like a lot of inference to draw from a bit of battle damage on a shuttle. Captain Sullivan was ready for that. Sir, we checked. I'm telling you straight that the information that Captain Tay discovered is accurate. We need to find and eliminate that shipyard, and then we need to find out why the galactic government is feeding us bullshit about these people. None of their intelligence has been accurate. We have gotten better intel in 4 months than they have to offer. Really? They have been dealing with them for hundreds of years. Something is beginning to smell. The Admiral recalled all active missions, dispersing them into the nearby uninhabited systems, until some conclusion to this intelligence had been found. until he knew what the hell was going on. He wasn't sending them anywhere. Intel went searching, looking for what they had missed. Those Intech that had chosen to betray their people and enjoy a wealthy retirement on Earth were suddenly and forcibly reminded of the terms and conditions, mostly by the heavily armed and suited Intel enforcers. They had questions, so many questions. The meeting had a grim air as Tay, Sullivan, and the Admiral went back over their records. He had ordered a deeper analysis of their previous engagements to see how far this went. Tay was feeling personally upset that her people had missed this for so long, but she finally had an answer for the Admiral. "Sir, we estimate that about 5% of the ships we have encountered were produced by this shipyard. Most were trapped in your first offensive and were destroyed. Statistically, that tells us that they were a professional force, since the pirates surrender as soon as they know they are outmatched. If I had to hazard a guess, they weren't expecting us and got caught. Now they have pulled back and reformed somewhere, leaving the occupied planets and the pirates for us to find and crush. This must be a well-established strategy, given that none of our prisoners have mentioned it. They might not even know about it." The Admiral stood, regarding the maps in front of him. "So somewhere out there is the Intech backbone. They have a plan B, and they are used to using it. The Galactic Council assured us that they have no form of central government, no fleet coordination or structure. They were wrong, or they deliberately misled us. Either way, we need a different approach. If they have a government, then we need to be talking to them. Our war goals were against a ragged coalition of thieves, not a centralized power with a coherent government. I'm informing the XCC that this is their territory. In the meantime, we need to capture one of these professional Intech ships and learn about their chain of command." Roden was rudely awakened and pushed quickly back to the interrogator's room, still blurry from sleep. The Intech was standing, leaning on his desk with his mask askew. "What are your people doing?" "All your forces have withdrawn." "Why? Where are they going?" "Your life depends on your answers." That woke him up. Humans might have no sense of smell, but he could certainly smell the panic in the air. He sat down carefully, unwilling to add to the tension. "Intech, you would have to show me the new information before I could hazard a guess, not to mention that sounds like good news for you. Also, and I mean this sincerely, fuck you." At that he fell silent, waiting to see what this had changed for him. If the fleet had vanished, it was down to new information. Nothing else would have stopped the Admiral. What had Tay found out that would send the HOF out into the dark? He worked through the problem, looking for what he had missed. Then he realized that it was in front of him. Pirates didn't have a disciplined navy, they didn't have Marines. His guards were definitely trained, and this ship was no pirate. This was Intech fleet, a thing they had been told didn't exist. He stayed silent, recalling differences in ships, thinking back to the ones that had told him nothing, the ones that had fought to the death. He realized what Tay had found. His interrogator was obviously reacting to something that was interfering with his plans. Roden decided to see how far he could push this. He made some huge assumptions and went for it. "Intech, we have different rules when dealing with pirates. I assume they finally contacted your central government and are discussing your surrender. That's how we normally behave anyway. If the Admiral is pulled back, I guess you have similar orders. You are Intech fleet after all." The Intech hissed, seeming to implode. It sat down and regained its composure. "This changes nothing. We will not surrender. Your fleet is simply hiding from us, hiding out in the darkness. You have no idea of what you face, what we can do." Roden leaned forward. "Intech, you already know that's not true. You said it yourself. All I can suggest is that you tell me what you want. Tell me how this ends. We are not conquerors or pirates. You have enslaved humans. You have attempted to attack us ever since we reached space. That must end not just for us but for everyone. What would it take to bring you to peace?" It was Captain Sullivan that found them, a system that was just too good. The patrols were too accurate, the ships too clean and too ready. They were professionals, and that created a problem. They were excellent on comm silence. He was getting nothing useful at all. Then, he spotted the weakness. They had to put up with all the other Intech idiots flying through their space, while they were always trying to be invisible, always hiding. "Sir, I can get our people in there." "What do you want me to do?" "I have every comms ID these guys have ever heard of. I could put us on the doorstep. How close and how many are really the only questions." The human ships silently moved around the system, all wearing the faces of the defeated Intech ships. Unchallenged and unnoticed, they waited for the Admiral's command. Admiral Williams had called in the entire fleet. He had thought about a few silent approaches, but that defeated the purpose. This needed to be loud. This was not going to be subtle. 4,000 ships against, at best, 200 enemies. The Admiral was going to make a point. He sent the planet an ultimatum, waited for a few minutes while Bork made the tea, and then sent in his ships. This time they had been briefed that they were facing professional ships and were to behave accordingly. The Marines were similarly warned. From every direction, the humans arrived, discarding their disguises, and with all the intel Tay and Sullivan could provide. The HOF had divided the system into slices, each with designated targets and priorities. The Admiral watched as all the theory, all the hidden practice, and the intel went to work together. Multiple squadrons intertwined into a firestorm, shattering the surprised Intech forces. Marines began launching their boarding parties into the fight, descending with the wrath of freemen onto the slavers. Tay was only half watching the battle. She had repurposed the carrier to repair the Hod ships, waiting for them to pitch up beside her before running triage. Some of the Intech ships were dragged in by the Marines and allowed to empty their prisoners before being pushed out of the ship for later. Her people were run ragged, but she had to admire the change in Ollie, since it turned out he could curse like a Marine and shout as if he had just been dragged out of the slums. She would have questions later. Bork was running the logistics, now aided by a devoted following of clerks as they kept the whole enterprise running. Ammo, meds, repair equipment, it flowed through his hands swiftly. She had heard that some quartermasters were weeping quietly in their offices. Roden waited in his cell, aware that something had changed. His last interrogation had ended in silence, as the Intech wrestled with whatever was going on. Then the door opened. A single guard without the usual firearms simply asked, "Sir, can you come with me? We have news for you." Then he stood aside and waited for Roden to precede him. This time there was no dank office. Instead, he was brought to the bridge, or at least it looked like a bridge to him. His interrogator was waiting with another Intech, apparently reading information from a console. The masks then regarded him. "Human, it is time for a history lesson. It is still undecided if you will live, but we need you to understand." They walked towards an office, as Roden sneaked a look at every system he could glimpse. "This is our past. Observe." Huge beasts moved across a savanna, obviously thousands of years ago by the dates. These beasts were beyond attack, too big for any predator to risk. A single species successfully latched onto these land mountains, then it began defending it from the competition. It became symbiotic, rather than parasitic. They grew large on the resources available, many never leaving the back of the great creature. His interrogator interrupted, "That human is a tech. Our hosts are beginning. For generations we grew with them, leading them safely through the ages, through changes in climate, flood, and fire. At the end of their lives, we generated a new generation from their beloved flesh." He turned to the human, until something changed. A new species, a biped from the trees, armed itself with sharp stones, set traps for the tech. It was a massacre. Many of our people died with them, but others changed. They sized the spears. They learned to hide in the long grass. Our war had begun. Roden was fascinated. It was the most original species he had seen, at least for ones reaching space. The last line stopped him cold. "War? With who? It seems like a normal enough competition to me." Both masks hissed at him. "Human, you live on a death world. Everything you meet is trying to kill you all the time. We are not hunters. We had no need of such habits. Until the spears appeared, then we learned. The tech serve as more than a host. We are deeply intertwined with their brain, to the point that they serve as libraries, comms, and tribe. We are defined by our host, and they are defined by us." Roden was getting the gist of it, he hoped, so they became living villages, supporting each other in return for resources and defense. "Cool." His remark was received in silence. His interrogator finally asked, "Do I understand you? You appreciate this development?" Roden was surprised. He didn't think the Intech really cared for his opinions. "Sure, it's very clever. I mean, we domesticated a bunch of species. A couple that has traveled the stars with us. Not sure we could fit one of your tech on board, though. Might give it a try. I mean, if that would help." The silence resumed for a moment. "Human, we never sought the destruction of the species that learned about weapons or traps. We simply learned how to defeat them when they threatened the tech. Then this happened." The images were obviously much more recent. A ship landing, a first contact, except it was with the tool users, the hunters. Time passed and a city grew, and in an orgy of ignorance, the tech were hunted. Those magnificent creatures became trophies. The parasites ignored, wiped out quickly with industrialized weapons. The tech, guarded by the remaining Intech, stayed out of range, learning the arts of guerrilla warfare. Soon they were forgotten, then celebrated as some leftover part of history, a thing of fairy tales and reserves. We were trapped, our tech treated like animals, our people like dirt. We decided to fight, all of us, including the tech. They mourned their loss, they hated being trapped and murdered. With nothing but the weapons we had made from the forests, We attacked the city. We sought out the aliens that had fed them such machines, and we destroyed them. The last of the tech. We took the city and the ships. We killed them all, save for the few we required to explain their machines. They sent more against us, still. We had learned, and we defeated them. They accused us of murder, genocide, and theft. We tried to seek peace, but no peace was offered, so we fought. We learned machines. We learned the pitiless war that is life in this galaxy. Roden recalled the mostly peaceful beginning offered to humanity. These guys hadn't stood a chance. Well, I can speak for you. If this is true, then humanity will stand with you. Surrender on terms, give up your piracy and return the slaves, and I'm sure we can get you a second chance. One of the masks let out a snort. You think so? Right now your Williams is killing our fleet, with only a moment's notice. He has thousands of ships and soldiers attacking as we speak. Our bravest are dying today, against humans that pretended to be in-tech refugees until they opened fire. You are such heroes. You are like the rest, and it will not be forgotten. Roden took a moment. In-tech, can you contact the human fleet? The in-techs nodded. I need to call someone. Your lives depend on it. I need to contact my captain. You need to talk to Tay.